But where would they live instead?
Well, look, I do. There's one thing I do agree with the Prime Minister on today, and he said they've made their bed. They need to lie in it. Now, if they do want to return to Australia, they need to go through the proper channels. They need to put an application in. The government needs to vet those people, not this sort of arrive on our shores out of nowhere and the government plays a Pontius Pilate role of washing our hands and we don't have anything to do with it. I'm sorry, that's not how arrivals to our country should be. Yes, it's true that if you're an Australian citizen, you have a right to come back to this country, but it's still not true that you just get to turn up. You need to get a proper approval process to do that. That's not what's happening here, at least what we've been told. As I say, the government says that they don't know about this, they're not cooperating with this. So in that case, if they are ignorant about these people, they should not be allowed in.
Now, Pauline Hanson last night said, and I quote, "You say there's great Muslims out there. Well, I'm sorry, how can you tell me there are good Muslims?" End quote. Your response?
Look, like many times, Andrew, Pauline just goes too far. And I think it's statements like this, it's ill discipline like this, which to me indicate that Pauline is not ready to be a Prime Minister or in charge somehow of our country. She's effectively running for Prime Minister now. She's opened herself up for that. Well, she should be subject to the same scrutiny as anyone else running for that position. Her statement is clearly inflammatory and wrong. I mean, we only have to look at Ahmed Al-Ahmed just a few months ago, a great Muslim Australian, a hero, an Australian hero, who saved many lives in Bondi by putting his own life at risk, confronting those terrible terrorists. So her statement is wrong. She should correct it. She hasn't today. She hasn't repeated it quite, because I think she knows it's wrong, but doesn't repeat it. But as I say, you just can't go around saying things like this if you want to be a serious leader in Australia. And look, I know a lot of people are putting hope in One Nation, but Andrew, I really worry that in a glare of an election campaign, where Pauline potentially would have to be on the debate stage, up against the Prime Minister, subject to lots of scrutiny, she would wilt, and that would just mean that Anthony Albanese would be easily re-elected.
Well, I did think her comment was terrible, basically, very undisciplined and nasty, really. I'm sure she misspoke, but you can't misspeak like that. And I didn't hear her sorry today.
Should correct it.
Now, I was struck by your...
Yep.
Well, I think so too. I think so too. Now, as I said, you know, I'm interrupting you in a busy a tour that you're doing of, you know, to give the people the facts on global warming. I was struck particularly by your column this week, saying net zero policies are going to take over some of our food-producing farms. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I'll be going through that tonight. I'm on a Dump Net Zero roadshow, Andrew. We need to get the message out here to people what's actually going on. And what's happened in the last week is the government has issued a report, an official report, which shows that 18 million hectares of Australian farming land would need to be converted to carbon credit production. So we don't produce food, we don't produce fibre, we produce carbon credits. And they produce nothing really for our economy, but they just cost us jobs, rural activity, shut things down. This is something, it's an inconvenient truth that the government has not been upfront with the Australian people in its plans for net zero by 2050.
Matt Canavan, people wonder how this Labor government could promise that its net zero schemes would save us $275 each on our electricity bills, but actually then cost us much, much more, as everyone knows. The answer, I think, is that no Labor MPs in Canberra have A, studied engineering, and B, will listen. You listen here to Labor Senator Michelle Ananda-Rajah get stroppy in Senate estimates when Gerard Holland of the Page Research Centre tries to explain to her how our power system really works. Listen to this.
The coal-fired power stations in this country are still making money because we've squashed out the middle, and essentially what's happened is we plummet.
They're costing us money because they keep breaking down.
No,
and then we're having to use gas or something expensive to kind of back up energy. That's costing a lot of price volatility.
No, the volatility is the fact the sun goes down every day at about the same time, and there is a huge gap.
There's things called batteries that Australians have embraced in droves.
Senator, can I explain that a system is very different to a market? So The way a market works is it's not just the cost of generating the electricity that feeds into the price, it's also the demand for that electricity and its availability. So what happens is when the sun goes down and you have that huge reduction of electricity from the grid, it goes down at the same time that everyone comes home from work, they turn on their TV, they put on their washing machine, they put on their microwave, you still have that increased, if anything, a spike in demand. Now that power has to come from somewhere. Now if I've got a battery that only operates for half an hour a day, and it's cost me tens of millions of dollars in order to produce, I have to make back the costs of my capital expenditure in that very compressed window. And because there isn't any other electricity in the market, I can charge whatever I want. Now, batteries set the price over 23% of the time last year, despite producing less than 2% of the electricity in the market. So introducing these technologies that only operate in tiny, weeny increments does not suppress prices. It creates the volatility.
We're going to have to agree to disagree on this one.
Matt Canavan, I know you've been saying this sort of thing. You've probably been saying it in this roadshow of yours. Beautiful cold-splaining, though. The thing here is, when it's actually told right to a Labor senator, she doesn't want to hear it.
Look, that is perhaps the biggest problem we've got in this debate, that those that are set in their ways, that renewable energy is going to lower prices, simply don't want to hear a different view, simply don't even want to engage in the debate. Now, we can see, we just have to look out the window now and see that the weatherman's telling us it's going to be fine and sunny, but actually it's raining. Our bills are going up, not going down like they promised us to do, they would. Now, they don't have a good explanation. You can see that whenever they're challenged, they really, really struggle to combat these things. What that inquiry, what you just played, that extract there is from the Senate inquiry into misinformation. I've been spending 2 days on that. And so their response, rather than debating someone like Jared Holland, is to accuse him and others, myself, of just engaged in misinformation and try and censor us and shadow ban us and shut us down. That, to me, shows how weak they are in this debate. It's why we must not be intimidated. It's why I'm out here in Serena tonight getting together people saying, hey, do you want to get our country's competitiveness back? Do you want to bring our power prices back to where they should be, some of the lowest in the world? Well, we need to change. But to get there, we need to actually change what we're doing. Because what we're doing right now is clearly not working, so doing more of the same is kind of insane.
Matt Canavan, all strength to your right arm in this struggle. Good on you. Thanks for coming on the show again.